Hello, this is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge. Guess what's happening today? I did my first book haul. It's about to get crazy. So I wasn't sure if I wanted this to be the kind of channel where I did book hauls on, because I tend to buy a couple at a time or order them from Amazon and they don't all come at once. However, in the last 2 weeks, I've bought about 15 books and these are just going to be a few of them. Some of them are still on their way, but I thought I would do a book haul. And the reason, book hauls are awesome. So let's work our way through this beautiful stack right here. Woo! The first book that I have to share with you is Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bachardost. So this is a Snow White twisted tale, and it's about two girls, Mina and Lynette. And Mina has a heart that's made out of glass, and Lynette is made out of snow in the image of her late mother. So Mina becomes the stepmother to Lynette when the king, who is Lynette's father, when his wife dies in childbirth, and a magician, who is Mina's father, makes the king an exact replica in the form of a baby of his dead wife. So Lynette is a living reincarnation of her mother. And Mina, she had an accident when she was a girl, and her father, who said same magician, he replaced her heart with glass so that she wouldn't die. It's a telling of Snow White where they're really going to focus on the relationship between stepmother and stepdaughter, the mother-daughter relationship, and what, might have led to the events that happen in Snow White from different angles. Really focusing on that relationship instead of, it being about a prince or anything like that. So yeah, I'm really interested in trying this. I love a good retelling. And I mean, the artwork is just beautiful too. So this is the first book. The next two books I got are A Shadow Bright and Burning and A Poison Dark and Drowning by Jessica Cluess. I haven't heard a lot about these books. I know they're pretty popular. It's going to be a trilogy. It's the Kingdom of Fire trilogy. I picked up these first two books because, again, I liked the artwork. I'm a sucker for pretty artwork. I didn't know anything about them ahead of time. The synopsis tells about them that it takes place in a magical world where women are forbidden to wield magic, or they just don't usually wield magic, so that's really rare. And Henrietta is the main character, and she is a teacher at a girls' school, and she is trying to hide that she has magical powers. And so that's really all I know. I haven't looked into these at all, but I'm really into trilogies and I'm really into this kind of young adult. So I'm really excited to read those. So those are the next two that I have on my list. Next up, this is one I'm really excited about. It's called An Enchantment of Ravens, and this is by Margaret Rogerson. So this is about Isabel, who's an artist, and she paints and does artwork for the fair folk. So it's a fairy story. And one day she makes a painting for the Prince of the Autumn Court. And apparently she's a little too truthful with what she sees in his eyes, and actually gets put on trial for revealing a little too much of his normal character, and I guess that's really dangerous for the fair folk. So she gets put on trial and is pulled into the court's intrigue. I'm a huge fan of fae and fairy stories, so really excited to try this out. So that's my next book I got. This is Swords and Scoundrels by Julia Knight, and it is the first in the Duelist trilogy. So duelist as in sword fighting and cliche things like that. I don't know, but the cover looked cool, and I was really interested because it's actually about a brother and a sister who were famous duelists, and they got kicked out of the circle of duelists that they were in or whatever, and now they're forced to be highwaymen. And it says one day they rob the wrong stagecoach and get sucked into a kingdom's power struggle, and they need to try to help a king get back on the throne. So this is the first one in that trilogy. It looked exciting. I love whenever I find a story that's about like sibling relationships. I'm a big fan of those because I feel like I mean, they're done in young adult fiction, but I don't feel like they're always done well. So we'll see if this is one that does that. I don't think this one is necessarily young adult. I got it on the sale stack. I don't mind picking older books up, and it looked really interesting. So I'm going to take that one on as well. This is Of Poseidon by Anna Banks. And this is book 1. Let's see if my camera will. I don't think it likes this book. This is book 1 in the Serena trilogy. It's Of Poseidon, Of Triton, and Of Neptune. And I really enjoyed this. I read this whole series about like 2 years ago when it came out. And this is about Prince Galen, who's the prince of the Serena, and they're mermaid people, kind of like they're merfolk, and he hears about a girl who can talk to fish, which is a sign that you are a Serena, and if you aren't living under their rules, it means you're a fugitive. So he's sent to investigate and find out more about this girl, and when he meets her, she doesn't know anything about the Serena. So it leads into a really cool story that has a lot to do with some mythology as well as like some mermaid stuff, and I really liked it. So this one is a reread for me, but I wanted to pick it up because I've been missing this one. I only have the last one in the trilogy, so I want to get the other 2. So next up, this is a really interesting novel. I'm really excited for this. This is Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. I even love this author's name. It's so cool. This is a really interesting story. So this is an alternate past story going on the premise that what if the dead started walking during the Civil War? How would our nation be different? As well as, zombies. So a little bit of like horror, a little bit of sci-fi. And this main character, her name is Jane. And in this land, you know, since this has happened, the Civil War wasn't ever won by the North in this novel, as far as I can tell. Again, like I haven't looked into this too much because this is new and I had never heard anything. So forgive me if like any of my premise is wrong. I like to know as little as possible when it's like a newer book, because you know, especially when it's not a series that's been around a lot. So, because sometimes I can't avoid spoilers. So what I know about this one is that there's this law that all African and Native Americans have to be trained in combat to fight the dead. And they don't have any choice about this. They have to go to schools to learn. But she is the illegitimate daughter of an American heiress and a slave. And so she's kind of cast out. And so she doesn't really fit in one place or the other. And she gets sent to this combat school to learn to fight the dead. And she wants to go back home and just use her training and become an attendant. She goes to school to become an attendant and to be able to fight the dead. And she gets sucked into some political intrigue as well as fighting the dead. So it's super interesting. I'm not a huge fan of zombies. I do like The Walking Dead, but I'm not a huge fan of like classic kind of zombie stuff, but this had a really cool twist. And again, like the poster is just, the cover of this is just beautiful. And I don't read a lot of diverse fiction, so this is really interesting to me, and I love learning about like different aspects of different cultures, and when I find that in YA, I'm pretty drawn to it. So I'm really excited to check this out, even though it might be a little scary for me. We'll have to see. Books really affect me, so if it's too scary, it can get a little crazy for me, but super excited about this. All right, next up, this one looks pretty interesting. This is called Bound to You. It's part of this imprint, or it's an imprint of Fuel and Friends, and I really love Fuel and Friends. They're the ones who did you could like see up here, they're the ones who did the Cinder, the Lunar Chronicles, and I love those. So Bound to You, this is a werewolf romance, and the premise of this is that when you are a teenager, your parents hold kind of a party for you to meet your mate, because all werewolves will meet their mate when their age is like 16 or 17, and she wants to meet her mate and start her life with him, and when she meets him, he's not quite what she was expecting, and I don't know, I used to read a lot of vampire and werewolf stuff. Again, I said Twilight was the first thing I got into. So once in a while, I'm cool with picking something up that fits into that. And it seemed interesting. It did look a little 50 Shades to me, so we'll see. But the premise of it doesn't seem like that. It seems kind of cool. So I'm gonna check this one out. This next one up here, this was a complete surprise to find, and I'm so excited. It's actually what I'm currently reading, so I'm definitely going to do a book review for this book. This is Caroline, Little House Revisited. It's by Sarah Miller, and this, it is Little House on the Prairie from Ma Ingalls' point of view. So it's from Caroline's point of view. It starts when Charles asks her to move to Kansas with him. They have Laura and Mary at this time. She's pregnant with Carrie, and they're traveling from Wisconsin down to Kansas. And Little House has such a close place to me. Those books were really the first thing I ever read. They got me so into books, and so when I saw this, I had to pick it up. I'm not too far into it. I'm only like 60 pages in, but I'm loving it. It's just a really calm story, but it's also about what's happening in Caroline's heart and in her head and how she feels about the decisions that are made. And even though she knows it's what's best for her family, it's still hard for her to do because all of her and Charles's family lived in Wisconsin, and they're leaving them to start out on their own. And even though Charles is really excited, Caroline's afraid, and she doesn't want to leave her family, and she's pregnant, so she's struggling with that. And it's just so interesting. So this is a great read so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely a nice change of pace too from some of the intense reads that I have. So very excited about this one. Are two that I've just ordered off of Amazon. These are two time traveling romances that I read. They're in the same series as Waiting for Yesterday. That was the last book that I read. It was a reread for me. But they all are someone falling back through time and then falling in love. And I'm a sucker for Outlander. There's my Outlander shelf. Whoop, whoop. And they're just cute little short ones, not the 1,000-page sagas that Diana Gabaldon does, which I love, do not get me wrong. But they're a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, and they're just something if I want to read in between one of these. I like to have a short little romance to pick me up if something's a little dark and heavy. So yeah, I'll be reading these. This is Distant Dreams. This one is, she was in a car accident and she ends up waking 120 years in the past. And yeah, so they're pretty simple. They're not usually anything deep, but they're super fun. So yeah, so this is my book haul for the first part of April. I mean, I definitely will buy more books this month. Let me know if you have any you'd like to hear about for sure, because I'd make those a priority for you. If there's any you really want to know more about, I'll put those at the top of my list. But yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for coming to the Book Refuge, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.